Well, it's been 2 weeks since we had an episode. A lot has happened and also not happened at all. I think where we left off was I was supposed to upload a YouTube video and you were supposed to write an article, um, which we did, but I don't think we ever talked about. So why don't we start with that? That sound good?
Yeah, yeah. And real quick shout out to Marty Wiggins who uploaded a YouTube video, kind of to jump in with the cycle of just getting something out there. So congrats to him for doing that. Yeah, so I published my second article, um, and I felt things were very flipped this time, where I actually felt very good about it, about just the process. I felt like for the most part, I invested like the correct amount of energy into it in order to get the result. Or I didn't like spin gears a whole bunch like I did before, where I wrote an article and then scrapped it and wrote it again and then like kept kind of second guessing and all of that. I felt pretty clear headed about it. I had a good
Okay.
process and I got that done.
That was not the impression that you gave because I think like the day before I asked you how it was going. Or you asked me how I don't know. Neither one of us were really in a good seemed to be in a good place. So that's interesting to hear.
Well,
It's not
yeah, but that's because I had just procrastinated on it until the day before, basically. And I did finish it at 11:30 when my deadline was midnight, so the time was compressed. But part of me was being, I'm going to say somewhat, I'm going to give myself maybe too much credit here, but I was trying to be a bit strategic about it in that I gave myself only 2 days or really less, and I'm thinking I don't want this to take more than that amount of time. So I'll just procrastinate and then that's just the time I have to do it. And so I am actually fairly happy with that. Obviously, that's a bit of a slippery slope, but I think it worked out pretty well this time, at least. Uh, the other side of it, though, is that my first article did very well and, did very well at Hacker News and all of that. This one did not. It didn't do terrible, but it was not this big like weekend of everybody talking about this thing that I wrote about. I released it. Actually, one cool thing, I was thinking I would wait to submit it to Hacker News until like the weekend or something, like I had before, give me a few days to just sit on it. But almost immediately, someone else posted it to Hacker News, which implies that they were probably subscribed to my feed, like my RSS feed, and they posted
okay.
it. So that was pretty cool, actually, that I didn't need to do that. Somebody else is following and sharing. Um, but it didn't really get much attention on Hacker News, just a handful of upvotes and whatnot.
Can people subscribe to your thing?
Yeah, so I have this list of things that I need to work on. Um, sort of. There is an RSS feed for my blog. There's not really a button to click on to get to it. You would have to like copy paste my blog's URL into your RSS reader, and then the RSS reader would find it and then subscribe. And obviously, a lot of people don't even know what RSS is. So there's probably needs to be some kind of email thing. I have this whole list of things that I need to do to just kind of bring the whole thing along. Like the website itself is pretty not great looking and it's got some issues, but anyway, I'll I will do those things hopefully for the next
Well,
article, I guess.
everybody talks about the mailing list being like the number one thing
Yeah.
that you should have. So,
Do
you
people
know,
read articles from their email? Like, is that a thing that real people do?
apparently more people are consistent with their email subscriptions, like opening and reading an email and keeping up with that more so than any other social platform. So, you can follow or subscribe to someone on YouTube and you'll
Yeah.
keep up with them for a little bit and then they'll fall off. Example being, never mind. Uh, but like people don't keep up with their subscriptions or their follows. They just and the algorithm doesn't really care if you keep up or not. Different
Yeah.
conversation. But apparently
Yeah.
with email subscriptions, the opening rate is extremely high. I mean, depending on who you are, and they will keep that forever. I mean, not necessarily. I've already
Yeah.
had a couple people unsubscribe from my email list after like a month, but
Yeah.
the majority have opened it and read it,
Wow.
and it's apparently much more personal, and it actually kind of means something to them if you take good care of it
Interesting.
or. whatever.
I don't know how to keep up with. This is a whole side thing, but I just can't imagine like opening your email and then it just mine is just full of crap. And
Well, that's yeah. I mean, everyone's is, but something from someone you care about, oh, it's an email straight from Michael New. Wow, that's awesome.
I guess so.
Like once a month or something, or every
Yeah.
3 months. I mean, you see that and you get kind of excited about it. I mean, it's not junk mail. It's not an ad.
Right, right.
So yeah,
Okay.
I think you should get that up and running.
All right.
Um,
Well, that sounds important. The whole website thing, it's like it's just more complicated than I was expecting. There's a lot.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'll do that.
The other thing is, are you uploading it to other places other than just Hacker News?
No, in this case, I didn't even upload it to Hacker News. Somebody else posted it there, so I don't know. I mean, I did a little bit. I'm very intentionally trying not to get too interested in like how many people looked at it or whatever. But I did kind of, check that a little bit after a couple days, and I did get, several thousand hits to the website that were new, so that was nice. I did see it get posted kind of on some weird forums that I hadn't really heard of. I think there was like something on Facebook and things like that. I don't know if I can see much of the social media part where it gets posted, but it seemed like it did kind of get shared around, which is cool. I mean, to me, that's the ideal, is that I just publish something and
Right.
then anyone who's invested in like the blog, they share it and put it wherever they think it makes sense. That's obviously a nice thing for them to do for me. And then I don't have to be like self-promoting my own stuff or even thinking about it. So I'm happy
Yeah,
that kind of happened.
but I don't know if you can rely on that, and they may not know to do that. A bunch of people might love you, but they don't know to go post your stuff somewhere else. I'm just
Well,
saying
it
it
worked for
might
Hacker
be
News though, and that is my intended audience. Like I'm for both of these articles, I've written them with the Hacker News audience in mind. And the first one did extremely well, and the second one didn't do so well, but it at least like landed on Hacker News immediately, which I'm pretty happy about. So, I think that part of it's at least working. But anyway, what were you gonna say?
well, I was just gonna say, can we just talk about this for a second? Because I'm interested in this.
Okay.
Um, have you is it worth looking into some sort of like infrastructure where you upload and then it auto uploads to 10 different places, or you I mean, I don't know how much
Yeah.
work you want to do every single time, but if you can set something up at the beginning, then you don't have to worry about that. Um,
Yeah.
as far as
I
specifics, I don't really know, but
I don't know. I mean, because I kind of looked into this a little bit, not necessarily what it would take to do that, but at first I was thinking, can I even submit this to Hacker News? Do they allow people to self-submit? Because some places don't. And they do. They say that that's fine as long as it's on topic and, the kind of thing that the audience would like. So I felt fine doing that. But I think in a lot of cases, Reddit doesn't really appreciate that. It's either explicitly against the guidelines or it's just kind of frowned upon by the community. Like you really aren't supposed to be posting your own content. So for Reddit, I kind of need it to be somebody else, or I do what probably everyone does, which is to like set up a fake account and then that posts it. But that just feels kind of gross to me. Um,
well, for the art stuff, you are encouraged to submit your own stuff. So,
yeah. Well,
at least some
maybe it is
areas.
just subreddit specific. Yeah.
They just don't like self-promotion, so if you were promoting, like, a business or a product, and the
Right.
article was about the product, then you'd get flagged. I don't know.
Right.
But Reddit is like a lottery, and I like
Yeah.
Reddit for that reason, and that there's I don't know, maybe just 'cause it worked out for me one time, and so
Right.
I liked it, but
Right.
yeah, um, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
it's it's funny because back like for YouTube, YouTube is the platform. And when you create a YouTube video and you upload it, you are hoping to do well on YouTube and the rest kind of doesn't matter. I discovered this, pretty thoroughly when I was uploading a lot. I would post things other places to Reddit, to wherever, stuff like that. And like you might get a little spike, but it just didn't even compare to the amount of traffic you would get if YouTube was just showing your video. So it almost just wasn't worth thinking about any of those things. And once I kind of hit some certain, size threshold, It just got posted organically to other places, which seems way better to me anyway. Like I mean, I think for the
Yeah.
art, posting to the art subreddit is pretty straightforward and makes a lot of sense. But in a lot of cases, I don't necessarily know what the right subreddit would be. Sometimes you have to kind of be a member for a while. There's like all these kind of rules and things. There's the
Yeah.
own or the culture of the subreddit you kind of have to know a little bit. So ideally, it just other people do it, if the blog gets some, some momentum and some followership, which I think is
Okay.
mostly how I'm going to think about that.
I think that's good. That passes the test, but you need a way for anyone who comes across your blog to easily be able to subscribe to
Yes,
it. So make sure that is in place.
yes, that I 100% agree with. So
Yeah.
I got to do
Okay.
that. I'm juggling a lot of projects right now, so it's tough.
Do you have a third article lined up?
I have a list of ideas, but not really, no. Like I haven't decided what I'm going to do, and I haven't started, working towards it at all.
Okay, so we're
So,
kind of in the same place.
okay. Yeah. Anyway, I would way rather talk about you right now.
Okay, let's talk
You
about
up
me.
you uploaded a video. It was very interesting. How
Why was it interesting? We're talking about the lonely fisherman, right?
Yes, The Lonely Fisherman, which is I guess second video in the series. You did the announcement trailer sort of thing. So I don't know if that counts as the first video or not. And then you uploaded the Spider Lady video. I can't
Sleepwalker
remember
one, yeah.
the
Yeah.
Sleepwalker, yeah. And then kind of a filler video. Not filler, but an
Yeah,
experimental
yeah,
one that wasn't part of the
yeah.
series. Anyway, so I was surprised at it for several reasons.
Give me
Um,
your reasons. Give me all your thoughts, and then yeah, because yeah, just give me your thoughts.
okay. Well, most surprising and interesting thing was that I see the thumbnail, which is this typewriter, and there's kind of smoke drifting around it and this atmospheric looking thing. I'm like, cool. Daniel uploaded a video. So I click on it. Can't wait to see the
Yeah,
art. Where is that? And it's just the same picture the whole time because it's a shot of that typewriter with the smoke kind of curling and building and all that, which is a very cool shot, but there's no painting in there. There's nothing beyond what you see in that sort of still. Like interesting. It's a story and a scene, I guess, but there's no piece of art in there. And that was surprising to me.
yeah.
And I
Also, apparently, it's surprising to all of my followers as well,
uh-huh.
or
So
subscribers.
I was
Yeah.
kind of upset that we didn't talk last week because I really wanted to see uh I wanted to ask you what happened there.
Okay. Well, yeah. What happened? All right. So, oh, this I don't even know where to start. This is just so. Oh, for me, it's insane. To everyone else, like, what's the big deal? But uh, I wanted to basically repeat the process of my Sleepwalker video, right? Talk about world building, the process of the art. You show the finished art and you tell a story. Easy
Right.
peasy, right? Who cares? So I'm like, okay, let me just repeat that process. I won't change anything. Perfect. This will be easy. It'll probably take me about a month. But what was different about this one than the Sleepwalker video is that for the Sleepwalker video, I already had the story and I already had the art done. So it was just a matter of making the video. That was it. So this one was a bit different in that I had nothing. I just had a thumbnail. So I take the thumbnail and I start developing the story and I start working on the art. And I gave myself a month to do it, thinking, "Oh, this will be easy. Like there's
Yep.
plenty of time." I was wrong. I I was wrong. So I the story starts developing as I'm doing the art and I'm doing more and more art, I'm thinking, "Oh, well maybe I'll just do 10 times the art and I'll do 10 times the story and it'll be 10 times better than, whatever." And on some level, I'm glad I did this. And keep me on track here cuz I could just ramble on about this forever.
All
But
right, I'll try.
um the story turned from this little short story to this like movie that I could like it's huge now. The story is enormous surrounding this one little thumbnail that I did.
Yeah.
And the amount of art I did for it is a lot more than my other ones. And it's not necessarily better. There's a lot of drawings I did that I don't like, that were really messy or they don't seem to fit. And, I'm
Mhm.
doing the drawings as I'm developing the story or whatever. But over the course of this month, I set a deadline, June 25th. We had agreed to do that. You had to write a couple paragraphs of an article, and I had to make, a piece of art, write a story, and make a video, and all that stuff. Um, Not that we're comparing, but
Okay, but let me just say this. Like, I acknowledge that, and obviously I spent far less time, but I th- what you're doing is much more a piece of like the main quest for you. This is kind of a side thing for me where I'm still spending lots of time on other projects. So it's just gonna have to kind of be that way for this. So
yeah.
don't be too
Also,
resentful here. So you're not
I'm
wrong.
not. Who cares? I
Okay.
just yeah. Um. Anyway, I forget where I was, but basically, I ended up with tons of footage of these drawings and so much story. I mean, like, I could write a novel on this thing. It's not finished, like, there's, holes everywhere and whatever, but I've bulleted
Mhm.
out, like, all this stuff, and I got so into it. I mean, I legitimately started to feel like I was going insane because this story just consumed my life. And I mean, I'm walking around, I'm just going through it, I'm thinking, I'm,
Mhm.
playing music, I'm writing stuff out, I'm drawing things. Like, I legitimately it was like, am I going to go insane? That like it's a real question. Um, so anyway, I everything's fine. Um, uh,
Did you just spill beer everywhere or
no, I dropped my unopened beer.
okay.
Um, anyway, I ended up with a lot of stuff. Not only the story behind the art of like my process and what I was trying to do, behind the scenes, the
Yeah.
story itself, and then the art itself. And so the concept of making a video for this just got bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of a month. And so as that deadline got closer and closer, I still had not finished like my, final piece of art. And so I only wrapped that up like a couple days beforehand. And then I'm thinking, oh, I have to make an entire video on this. It's not going to happen. Like it's not going to happen. And so I started stressing about this so bad. I mean, so bad. Like we can get to that in a little bit, but so it finally occurred to me a couple days before uploading the video that there was no way I could possibly repeat the process of the last video or the format of the last video. It just wasn't going to happen. So I start pacing around and it occurs to me, I think, okay, well, this story is so big. What if I broke it down? And so I start looking at my notes and there's about 8 different chapters of this story. I'm
Good
thinking,
lord.
okay, well, what if I broke it down into those 8 chapters? The first one will be the lonely fisherman. That's sort of like the prologue, and then it'll go through these 7 other sections, and then I'll tell the story through these 7 different videos, or these 8 videos will tell the story, and I'll upload them like maybe every other day or something. And then at the end of that, I'll do the process of the entire like art. I'll throw the art at the end in a separate video, so that'll be my ninth video. And then my 10th video can maybe be kind of wrapping everything up together. And that hits me before the 25th, which I was supposed to upload a video. And so I'm like, okay, push everything off the desk. Let's do the first one. And so I do the Lonely Fisherman, and I was really struggling on what to do with the B-roll of it because I wanted to tell this story. I wanted to kind of experiment with just jumping into a story and what is that like? And can I tell a story better than I did before? Because you gave me some critique on that, and I wanted to try to improve my process of like just
Mhm.
focusing on the story. And I think that was good. So I was able to focus on like this new thing. I wanted to focus on getting better audio quality because the audio sucked and everything else I've done. So I set up this whole thing. literally right after our last podcast, I stayed up really late and just recorded that. But the B-roll, I kept going back and forth of, do I show the art already? I don't wanna spoil it. Like, I don't wanna just throw all the art there. And I was like, "Well, what if" and I've been enjoying the whole filmmaking idea so much, like, just playing around with real stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been getting a little carried away with that. And then I had this idea, oh, what if I did the typewriter? What if I set up this fog machine and it was all one cut for the whole thing? So I get super excited about that and I time it out. I had all the story and the audio recorded, and so I took notes. I was like, okay, at this line, I'm gonna blow out the candle. At this line, I'm gonna trigger the smoke. At this line, this is gonna happen. The lights will slowly go off. At the end, this is gonna happen and everything. It's one take from beginning to end. I was so proud of that. And I ended up so deep in my own little world, and I, I don't necessarily regret it, but I end
Yeah.
up so far down this world that I had, just created a couple days before I upload this thing, and I'm so excited because I have solved the problem. It's not going to be one video; it's going to be like 12 videos, and it's going to be great. And so I upload that first one, and there's like nobody watched it. And also, people keep asking, well, where's the art? Why is there no art? I guess I like your video, but where's the art? And so it's like, oh yeah, unless I follow through with all 12 videos, this doesn't make sense, which would be totally fine. But if you back up a second, it's like, oh wait, no, the whole purpose of this entire thing was to make a sketchbook and not to make an entire movie out of one drawing in one story. And so I have had to reel myself way back and really rip myself away from the story because I fell in love with it so much that I really wanted to just dedicate the next 3 months to telling it. But it's like I gotta pull back and have a little discipline here and just control myself a little bit because I guess what happened is I did not specify my priorities. I got totally lost. I don't really regret it. I mean, it's fun. I could go on and on about sort of, this was the first story I really pushed into and tried to develop. And I told the little prologue of it, and I think I'm gonna hold back on. I don't know. I'm decisions pending. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the story of what happened. I have since changed my mind. I'm not going to do I'm not going to split it into 12 videos. I'm going to make one video. That's the plan right now. It could change, but I took this whole week off. Took the whole week off
Oh, nice.
to unstress and just stop
Okay.
worrying about stuff. So anyway, please say something.
Well, first, it does sound like you did go a little bit insane or have gone a little bit insane. So good job on recognizing that and taking the week off to just sort of throttle down. So good call there. You're not too far gone. Um, I it kind of makes me think of like, Tolkien, and he writes the Lord of the Rings, but he didn't just sit down and write Lord of the Rings start to finish. He like sat in his attic and just made stuff up for his whole life, I guess. And he just drew maps and made up languages and the histories of all of these things. He built this massive world, and then out of that came the actual story of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that. Um, but he did not take all of the detail and try and shove it in there because it would have been rough. And he did the Silmarillion as a sort of concession to himself, I think, of like a way. I don't really know what the story is exactly, but he just puts in a whole lot of background and detail into the Silmarillion, which you can read, and I tried, and it's like, I don't know, this is a lot even for me, and I'm pretty into this sort of thing. Some people think it's great, but the point is, building that giant world with incredible depth, like depth that you don't even see as a reader, is part of what makes it amazing. Like the story just thoroughly holds up I mean, some people have complaints, but for the most part, it's like an amazing story. It just feels like the world is so fleshed out and there's so much underneath it. And I think like if you are world building, then you are kind of doing the same thing where like you are constructing this giant world. And if all you did was just throw together a little story, 2 minutes for this character, and then you spat that out on YouTube, then okay, cool, next one, another quick little story, and that's the next character in the world, it probably would feel kind of thin. Where as you start to tell more, it's like, okay, nothing really connects. What is really behind it? You can't ever really talk more about, what really happened to Sleepwalker and all this stuff, right? So having that is amazing, but I don't think it's a good time to do a 12 chapter epic on the second character in the world, because I just don't think that's it. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
fact
I
that it's
got there. I got
yeah,
there.
but the fact that it's there is amazing. Like that's, if the opportunity comes up, maybe you do an interview about this character, this story, or just talk about it in some context. You have so much to say about it. Any question you're going to answer with like this depth of understanding of like, no, 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 that's the whole, there's this whole thing that happens and I can tell you about it. Or that just plays into other characters. Maybe you reveal little bits of it as the world starts to be built and you can just reveal more and more. And it feels amazing to the viewer and the listener because it's just this bigger glimpse into the world that just feels solid and connected and coherent. So, anyway, great. But you have to show us art because that's the contract with the audience that you set up a couple videos
Well, that
ago.
part of me is happy to have broken that because I mean, yeah, one, sure, followers will be upset. Boo-hoo. This is my channel and I can do whatever the hell I want. And part of it was like, what if I do just want to tell a story sometime? What if I do just want to make what if I want to make a film? Like I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm not saying this was like, earth-shattering, creative, whatever, but part of me was like, no, this was something I wanted to do and I
Yeah.
did it, and I didn't show any art, and I kind of want people to not ever, have a
That's
specific
fair.
set of criteria that they expect from me. It's
Yeah.
just, this is me, and I'm gonna play around with film sometimes, and I'm gonna do art, and I'm gonna do story, and really, the although this is the thing I'm very excited about, but also it doesn't work if you don't follow through, and I'm not following through here. So the plan that was sort of the spur of the moment epic plan of releasing content was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do 12 videos, and it's going to make sense, and it's gonna be awesome, and you're not gonna know, it's gonna slowly reveal itself." And, ugh, I had so many cool ideas I gotta throw away, and it hurts, which is a wonderful place to be, but I'm not kidding, it is painful. I mean, you really start to fall in love with these ideas, and then you you gotta you gotta be able to murder them and move on because the bigger picture is important and it's easy to lose sight of that. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I do think the bigger picture is important here. And the thing you set up was I'm making a book with these sketches and they're all going to have, or whatever. And you're on
Two
two
episodes.
videos in and we're already making films and telling epic stories, right? So
Yes.
I do think you need to recenter on that, but it's still amazingly valuable to have this whole story. Like you don't need to throw that away. That's part of the world.
Yeah.
It's like baked into this giant ball that just continues to grow of the world that you are building. So amazing. It's just you can't spend the next 11 YouTube videos just narrating into a mic without showing art. I think
Well,
that's the
but
case.
can you help me solve this problem? Or do you have any
Maybe.
thoughts on this? I the I am struggling with this so hard, and apparently all other world builders that I see on YouTube are also struggling with this. But how to tell your stories. Um, it, because once you tell the story on YouTube, you kind of spoil it. I mean, I want to find a way where it sort of asks questions or gets you wondering more than
Yeah.
giving you answers. But like I think that the way I want to do it is turn some of these ideas into a book. And I don't mean the sketchbook. I mean, after the sketchbook, I want to maybe develop a book like Simon Stalenhag. I don't know if you know who he is, but
This is the Electric State.
yes. Okay, you do. Yeah. Uh, Like maybe take one of the stories and develop into that. Well, through the process of this YouTube thing, I mean, the whole thing is so new to me. I'm trying to figure this out,
Mhm.
but apparently this is the problem a lot of other people are running into is that I want to show the process. I want to tell you the stories. If I don't tell you the stories, it's like, why are you even watching? Um, and there's no excitement for the world building. But if I tell the stories on YouTube, I've ruined it for a book. And I've gone back and forth on worrying about that, like, oh, it's not a big deal, whatever. But it kind of is. You want to be able to hold back the secrets. You want to be able to hold back like the official telling of the story, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I was to make a book on this story, the Lonely Fisherman story, whatever, or Siren and the Music Box, whatever. I'll explain all of that in an upcoming video. But if I was to make like a whole book on that one story, I don't want the audience to really know much about it at all. But if I want them to be interested in a YouTube video, I got to tell the story. And so there's like this, I'm really struggling with how much do I tell them? How much do I hold back? Like, and maybe I should just chill a bit. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Here's a here's a couple things that come to mind, and obviously I'm not a world builder artist on YouTube, so I don't know how much this is worth. But first, one avenue that you could take, not saying you should, but you could, is to not actually tell the story, but just tell the story of the story. Or, just show people what you're working on, show them the in-process sketches, and then the more final piece of art. You're showing them the artistic process, and it's not a video about just zooming in on the final art and then staring at it. It's a video about you trying to figure it out and going through different iterations and eventually coming to the final piece. And that to me is very interesting. That's really the only thing I would want to see from the art side of it, because what else is there? Like, if it's a video, it needs to have a time component. So I want to see you figuring these things out and developing it. With the story, I think it can be kind of told the same way, where you are trying to figure out what is the story behind this piece of art. And they're both kind of feed off of each other, where you're developing this story, but what does that mean in terms of what you're actually seeing on the page? And how does that affect, the story? And you kind of did this a little bit with the first video. And then you kind of finish by telling the story, but I don't know if you even necessarily have to do that. You could just kind of finish with, okay, we have who this is and it's this person and whatever, but like you don't necessarily need to like begin and then narrate for minutes on end actually telling the story. You can just arrive at like the details and the big picture kind of almost outline of it. And I think that would be totally fine. Like, just
Yeah.
describe that process of discovering the story, and then later in a different video or in a book or whatever, you can like go on and fully tell it. The other option is to just tell a piece of the story. And I think like really that's what you did, even though it was sort of on accident, because you intended to tell this 12 episode epic, and for now you're cutting it at the prologue. But you tell this story around the Lonely Fisherman, and it is a story in and of itself. Like, it has this sort of mystery and climax and all of that, but there's a lot of questions around it. Like, you don't know who this guy is, you don't know what happened to him, you don't really know anything other than just the details you're being told. So depending on what the bigger story you want to tell is, you've only told part of it, and that's probably fine. And yes, if you were to put together a book, you would be retelling that piece, but I don't think there's any problem there. Anybody who had followed
Mhm.
the YouTube series would be familiar with it, but that's fine. It's going to carry on into all kinds of other things. So that's another option, is to just tell a part of it. And I think it really doesn't even need to be very much. You could have told, I mean, the story for the last one was like very coherent, and it had a very clear arc. So I don't know that you could have told less, but in future videos, it could be less. It could be something very small to just say, here's a story behind this character. And it could be a few sentences at most and like leave a lot of questions unanswered. Um, but
Yeah.
and I mean, this was my criticism for the first one, is that it does need to be coherent. Whatever part you put out shouldn't be confusing. It just has questions to it or like leaves things open ended. So there's a couple options there. The third kind of thought here is that you could just tell the story. If a book comes down the line, I mean, you're already fantasizing about a book, which is great, but like it's a long road to a book. Let's be
Yeah.
real, okay? So if you get there, fine. Some people are going to be reading the same thing, but if it's a book, it's a book. It's a totally different medium. It's different people are going to read it, or people who saw your YouTube series 4 years ago and hardly remembers, and now it's all put together. I don't think it's a huge problem, to be honest. Although you might feel differently, but that's just kind of the third piece there.
I'm beginning to I didn't see it as a big problem at first. I didn't think
Yeah.
much of it. I'm thinking that's a silly thing to worry about. And, who cares? I'm just me or whatever. But man, the more I'm doing this, the more excited about it I'm getting.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't I just start thinking bigger? Like, what if I mean, part of it feels silly to think, oh, well, what if one of these things turns into a movie someday? But the other part of me is like, well, why couldn't it? I got to keep a little bit of that sort of hope
Yeah.
or you know, sort of ridiculous dreams or hopes or beliefs or whatever in mind. And so, you know, I don't want that type of thinking to cripple me in any way. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to sell myself short. Some of the stuff like I legitimately feel very good about it.
Okay.
Um, and I think it'd be stupid to share it too soon. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
then in that case, and like I respect that. I think that's a good thing to like have decided on. Um, what I think you ought to do is treat it like you are telling a piece of lore around a character. You're introducing a character, you're giving like the Twitter bio of who they are, but you're not necessarily stringing together an entire story and telling it start to finish, unless you want to, which is great. But like think
Mhm.
about a game and how you world build in a game. I'm obsessed with Elden Ring. It's amazing, but that is one of the amazing things about it, is that you encounter some boss, some character in the game, and it doesn't there's no cutscene that like tells you a story of who they are. You're just presented with this often very strange or even disturbing character, and you get like little fragments of who this is. Like, who is the fire giant? Why is he here? Why does he have a face in his rib cage and a shield and whatever? And like, you get these little bits of detail around this character. Like, oh, Godfrey, he was, used to be Horaloo, and then he married somebody, and she like gave him this wolf or lion to like keep him controlled, and so now he has this like lion head attached to his body. And like, it's just a couple sentences, but it's really interesting and it's visually striking, and so you have like some narrative to associate with it, but it's not a story, or it's no more than like a couple sentences. And I think that
Yeah.
could be a good approach for what you're trying to do. Like, think of it like lore. Like, here's a character in the world, here's a couple things about them, but like, if you want to hear the story that led to who they are, or this, what transformed the Sleepwalker into the Spider Queen, whatever, then you have to like hear the story, and then you choose when to tell that story.
Yeah.
The other thought here is that like, clearly you are trying to do too much for the YouTube videos, because the last one, and we didn't even really talk about this, but the story was great. Like, I was very impressed. I thought your storytelling had evolved dramatically from the first one to the second one. Both
I
just
mean, from
in
the spider to the fisherman?
the spider to the fisherman. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
it just was better storytelling, and not to mention like the production value was higher. It was very fun to like have the scene set and do it all that way, and then like the sound effects that you did, it worked. Like, it was great, but the storytelling improved a lot, but there was no art. So I like, whatever you do, you're going to have to, like, you can't write a novel every time, or it's going to take you 3 months, and work's probably not going to let you take a week off every time you do a YouTube video. I'm just
They
guessing.
won't even let me take like a single day off, which I tried
Yeah.
to take. Never mind. Just forget it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
That
just
was
saying,
part of
like,
my stress.
right. This
Yeah.
can't be the strategy. So
Yeah. Okay. Well,
one way or
all
another.
right. Well, okay. I have two things. First, do you have any critiques for The Lonely Fisherman other than it didn't have any art? I know it didn't have any art. Everyone's told me that. Yeah.
Do I have any critiques?
Because you had some thoughts about, or you critiqued my storytelling in Sleepwalker. I I was legitimately thinking the whole time, will this pass the Michael test? Um,
I think it did.
yes.
It's been a couple weeks. I'm trying to.
That's okay. You don't need to search. I just
Maybe my one. Okay, if I have one critique, I'll give you one.
okay.
It did feel somewhat similar to the last story.
You have no idea. Um, the weirdest things are happening in like the strangest things are repeating, and I noticed this too. Um, and I'm trying not to stop myself, like, just
Mm,
change it because it's similar. I'm not gonna do that. So if this is the story that kinda comes out, then it comes out. But it's like the DNA is almost identical, but they take place like, they look completely different. I mean, they're different people, but they're, like, the
yeah.
same DNA. I don't know how to explain it, but it's, like, the in the weirdest ways, and it's like, what does that mean about me? Like, what the what? I don't know. That was its own fascination where you're just sort
Yeah.
of looking at both of these thinking, "What is this pattern?" I had
Mhm.
no idea. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just a really weird thing. I don't know how many people
Okay.
have experienced that, but okay, I have something. You said I'm doing way too much. Could not agree more. I've got to simplify that. And this is really just an observation about things that we do, and I have a
Yeah.
feeling you may have done this with your second article, but correct me if I'm wrong. The first one that we do, the first video I do, the Sleepwalker video, and the first article you do, it's the first. And so it is only a
Yep.
sense of discovery
Yep.
and adventure because you don't know what's coming around the corner or whatever. So you're just creating these things and you don't know if it's going to do well or whatever. But the second one, you compare it to the first. You have to. And
Yeah.
it struggles. Like it
Yeah.
it has to live up in every single way, but it's being compared in strange ways. Like the way I built the first one was totally different than I'm thinking about building the second one. Because the second one is always looking in retrospect of, trying to achieve the same thing but better. Whereas the first one was just living in the moment, trying to
Mhm.
create something for the first time. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, or did you experience that with your article writing? Um,
I so I'm extremely familiar with that phenomenon. Um, there's this thing that'll happen when I'm writing code a lot, where say there's some function that I need to write, and it's just kind of blank slate. I need to, I don't know, get some data over the network and process it and do some stuff and then like feed it back out. And so when I go to write it, there's nothing there, so I just have to start thinking like, okay, what do I need? What is the shape of this going to be? What kind of data am I working with here? What are the libraries? I just kind of think through it and write it all out, and then there you go. And often enough, it doesn't take too long. Just this little bit of like discomfort, I guess, and having to use my brain, but I do it. And then I might like stuff that away for a while, come back to it later, and then I need to like change it, or I need to write like another function that's very similar, something like that. And so to write that second function, let's say, I'm looking at the first and I'm kind of like copying things like, okay, well, what needs to change here? And how do I tweak this to work with this new thing, whatever. And it can wind up taking a really long time, or I can kind of get stuck and like not able to like get it to work or whatever. And it ends up taking way longer than if I had just like switched my brain on, deleted everything, and just wrote it fresh. It's like I'm trying to copy what I did before in a way that's completely unproductive. And
Mhm.
I think that that can happen here where, like you said, first video, there's no precedent at all. So you just go into it thinking, what should I do? How am I going to do this? Second video, you're like, even if you're trying to do it differently, you're still thinking about the first one as the template. Like, I did this thing, it worked. So I better pay a lot of attention to this. Should I do it different? But like, you aren't, even if you're doing it differently, you're still thinking about how it's different than the first one, not just organically its own thing.
Yeah.
I'm not super sure how to deal with that other than maybe just acknowledge it and kind of consciously decide, like, do I want to just copy this as a template, or do I want to just fully imagine that this is the first one? And I don't know how to do it, but at least like recognizing what is happening in your brain there can be helpful. That's a lame
Not
answer,
that
but
helpful. It is lame. And I mean, I'm not mad that you said it, but I'm mad that that's the
yeah.
best we got. Like,
Well,
consciously recognizing it, who cares? It's like
right. I
it
agree,
doesn't
but
seem to
it
help.
also there might not just be an answer. It might not be a
There's
secret that we
always
don't know. Well,
I
there might be a collection of techniques that help mitigate the problem, but
yeah.
it's hard for me to imagine that there is just some secret trick that we have not discovered, because clearly it's a problem for a lot of people.
We can do better. We got this.
Okay, I'm
And
certainly willing to try and do better.
for me, well, oh god, yeah. I made like I've literally made 3 or 4 other videos and then had to trash them because I got so attached to them and then uh, yeah, but you're like doing it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's best to just start over, but for this next one, uh, I haven't started it yet. I took the week off, whatever, so I haven't really or has it
Yeah.
been 2 weeks? I think I took 2 weeks off or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't started it yet, and I have some thoughts on it, and I'm trying to lower the importance or whatever, but we'll see how it goes. But I really want it to take on a life of its own and become its own thing rather than try to fit it into the mold that the first one was. Even see, there's this battle of being disciplined because I told myself
Yeah.
I'll do 5 videos with the same format as the Sleepwalker video. Well, I'm clearly struggling with that. Like it's the
Yeah.
approach isn't the same. It's not creating a video in retrospect like the Sleepwalker was. This is new and different. And so I don't know if I should let that go and then just, go out into the Wild West and see what happens where I don't have any system in place. I don't know. It's like, should you be adaptive or should you, be disciplined? It's
I think that you had decided or thought to take that same template, stamp it out 5 times. Same setup, different details, 5 videos following the same formula, right?
yeah.
And now you're questioning whether that's the right call, or well, actually that's what I want to get at here. Are you thinking just your sober, calm, daytime brain that that's not the right call? Or are you just getting kind of distracted by shiny things and you just don't really want to do that anymore because it just doesn't feel as good?
Every new shiny thing is the shiniest thing I've ever seen.
Yes,
And
that is how new
and
shiny things work.
yeah, this whole idea of trusting your intuition feels amazing. And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, this" and it works for story for coming up with stories. You have something and then and developing those thumbnails, it's like you just follow the intuition and it just works. Somehow, it's this weird magical thing I can't explain. It's beautiful and incredible. It's the thing that David Lynch was talking about where you just have these
Hmm.
like, you just discover the meaning. You catch the fish of whatever ideas. It's wonderful. But, when it comes to, like, you know, realistic stuff, like frequent uploads or whatever, there's this battle of realistic deadlines versus absolute
Mhm.
insanity following your intuition. And yes, I'm following every new shiny thing that comes along, and that's how I ended up thinking that it was a good idea to break a video into 12 different parts. Is
Right.
that it felt so right. And as an artist, you're supposed to follow what feels right. But
Two things on that. One, have you ever seen the Reddit algorithm?
I mean, you've
It's
talked about it before, but I
okay.
haven't seen it.
It's really simple. I like looked at the code behind it, the logic, whatever. Um, and it's basically like a post. You know, where it appears on the front page of Reddit is determined by how many upvotes it gets and how old it is. And the like something might get 10,000 upvotes and it's 8 hours old, and then something new comes along and it's got 1,000 upvotes, but it's only an hour old. And so they just like look at the number of upvotes and they have this time factor. Like how far from zero is the time of the post? And that becomes this huge multiplier on its ranking. And so something newer gets way more favored just because it's newer. That's how Reddit works. Otherwise, you'd be seeing the top post of all time every time you opened it up, right? So like newness is a huge factor in its appearance on the front page. I think your brain works the same way, and that's just how it is. The newness of something makes your brain rate it very highly. It's just the novelty effect. Second thing, I had this professor back in college, music or composition professor, and he was a really interesting guy, a fantastic teacher, just really good at his job and teaching. He had this excellent taste in music. He would just expose you to a lot of really interesting things, and there's a lot of cool stuff that I like kind of discovered through him. All of that. He was very good at recognizing what was good and bad. But he was also a composer, and you would listen to his music and you would hear him talk about it a little bit, and it would sound a little bit similar to what you're saying and kind of like cooking the fish that you're subconscious, whatever. And then you would listen to his music and you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? It's like he's just taking things, and it's just like it's completely like arrhythmic, atonal. It just sounds like nonsense. And I'm sure every little note and sound and articulation was like meaningful to him, but pretty universally, anybody who listened to it, myself and anyone else I kind of talked to about it, were like, yeah, dude, I just can't get into this. And I think the point is like trusting your intuition and like developing a sensitivity to like what feels right to you and all that like is hugely valuable. You have to have it. And it's, you know, something that people struggle to get into, myself very much included. But you do also need that part of your brain that's like, okay, does this make sense? I am at the end of the day trying to present this to an audience. Is this gonna work? Is this gonna be a thing that other humans like can follow and understand? Like you just have to kind of be mindful of that. And so I think having those moments of thinking, okay, now is not the time to do 12 episode series of storytelling, whatever. And like you already figured that out. I'm not saying that's not my message to you. I'm just saying like you've got to kind of think that way and put value on the kind of orchestrator project manager part of your brain. I think it's easy to kind of wind up leaning on one side of the spectrum or the other too much. Where some people think, no, 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 deadlines, get it done. Do, you know, just whatever people are into, do that. And like it becomes shallow and uncompelling and all of that. But then there's also like the super artist brain where you're like, no, this, that, whatever, the feelings, the things, the fish. And then there's just like no regard for the orchestration. Like, okay, how does this fit with the big picture? Are we actually on track to get that done? Like you do need that too. So that's
Yeah.
just my feelings right now from what you're saying.
No, that is so dead on. And I know we're probably going a little long, but I'm okay with it because this stuff has been bubbling up in my brain and I need to talk
Yeah.
about it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um
Sure.
I I think the intuition sense of working is new to me for
Mhm.
or I'm feeling it for the first time in probably I don't know 12, 15 years. I used to feel this way when I would write music as a, when I was younger, and then I just kind of lost it and I got wrapped up in this just sort of
Mhm.
self-shaming myself and, getting angry every time I make a mistake or whatever. I grew up and I just started getting angry at myself. Um, and then, read The Artist Way, started doing the exercises, whatever, and
Sure.
it
Yeah.
it feels as if I've gotten to a point where I can start trusting my intuition again.
Mhm.
And working in this way that feels so natural. I mean, it felt natural when I was a kid, and I haven't felt it in so long that the excitement level is just skyrocketed for this way of thinking or working, and it
Yeah.
just feels like every single new idea, every new shiny object is just the shiniest thing I've ever seen, and it's always right. And what I'm slowly learning is that they're not always right, but they are right. But they're not always right, but
Yeah.
they are. And it's this crazy thing, and the way I've started to think about it is that, never mind, I don't wanna get into that.
Is that too crazy?
Yes, it's too crazy,
All right.
but it's all the lore. Yeah, I can't stop myself. All the lore surrounding fairies, right? You
I
go out
guess.
into the forest and yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
We've all heard of fairies. You go out into the forest in Ireland or whatever, and there's fairies, and sometimes they trick you, sometimes they seduce you, sometimes they capture you, they kidnap you. Sometimes you
Yeah.
walk into a little mushroom ring or fairy ring, and you can forever be captured in their world. But then sometimes they grant you good luck. Sometimes they grant you good things,
Right.
wonderful things, covering things. Sometimes your time is sucked away, and I'm blanking on the name, but you fall asleep, you wake up 100 years later,
Sure.
and I'm starting to realize that I think, like, my theory is that all of that lore, it's not an accident that's the spirit of the fairies. The the fairies being sort of this creative world that your intuition, it acts and treats you like the fairies of the lore that we've heard. That sometimes they give you the truth. Sometimes they're out to trick you. Sometimes they want to suck away your time for 100 years. And sometimes they entrap you in this world and you can't escape. And but it's like they're just toying with you. And that's the experience with trusting your intuition so much, is that you believe that it's right, and then a week later, you look at it and you think, "Oh, I was totally wrong." But then something else shiny shows up on the horizon, and you go run after that, and it's like, you have to develop a this is my point. I think I'm learning that you have to develop a sense of suspicion for all of those shiny objects or all of those new ideas, is that, yes, they might be the next best thing, they might be completely right, but they also might be a huge mistake. You don't know. And so you have to back up and look at them from a more realistic point of view. I don't know.
Yeah. You need to do the project manager's way for a couple
No, never
months.
never that. Never.
Th- this week, I I've been pretty busy, and I've actually got like a new project with a friend of mine who's like really trying to launch this product, and so I'm kind of like working with him. So that's been taking a lot of time, plus like the other things. Like I've been really a lot to do, and I've been pretty heads down about it. And I think 2 days ago, I wake up, I'm like trying to just take the day kind of slow and do some planning and note taking and everything. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna like get myself centered. And then you might have gotten one too. Mom got me this little printer for Christmas. It's like a tiny thermal printer. So it like prints like text on a, roll of paper basically. Just like, black and white text. And I keep like it's sitting on the table and I keep walking by it and I'm like, this thing seems cool. There's got to be I just keep having this thought like there's something cool about this. I don't know what it is. Like it doesn't need ink. It's tiny and battery powered, wireless. And so that day, like somehow that just like wormed its way all the way into my head. And so I wound up spending like 3 hours hacking this thing, getting it to connect to my desktop, which it's not really supposed to do. I'm like getting it set up over Bluetooth as a print server. And then I like wrote this thing that like gets the day's weather and like the current date, and it takes my to-do list and like formats it. And then it's set up on this timer, so where every morning at 8 a.m. it like prints out my to-do list with the current weather for the day and everything. And then like the printer, it wasn't working right because it would like turn itself off after an hour. So I had to figure out like how do I keep it on all the time. So I wound up like gluing the button down because that kind of like short circuits it into staying on and all this stuff. And like I come away with from this like 3 hours later, like this is so cool. Every morning I wake up and my to-do list and the weather prints out on this thing. I'm like, what the hell? What is this? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't further my goals at all. It's kind of fun, but it wasn't a good time to have fun. And so now I'm kind of behind on stuff. But it seemed like the most brilliant idea that has ever crossed my brain in my life at the time. And I could not help but chase it down and do it.
See, and the way well, you stepped into a fairy ring and fairies captured you
I
and stole
actually
your
love
time.
that. That's how I'm going to
Yeah,
think about it.
but the way my brain is working now is that, oh, well, you did that and you can't see it yet, but actually that's going to be the solution to some problem that you run into 5 years from now. And it's going to mean everything. It's going to change your whole world. So good thing you stepped into the fairy ring and you lost your time. See, and you don't know it. And this is the thing that just it keeps me up at night. I can't stop. Like it's endless. Every new idea. I'm just constantly writing stuff down. And that
Yeah.
no, it doesn't mean they're all that great. Clearly, I have made some mistakes.
Yeah.
But I can't turn it off, which is
Yeah.
it's
There
like everything I've ever wished for as a creative person. And yet I'm suffering from it because I need a little bit more. Like, one of the reasons I took this break was because I have done nothing else. I haven't taken care of myself. I've
yeah.
hardly eaten. I'm not exercising. Like, just
Yeah.
everything has gone to hell. And because I just keep chasing this high of the creative
Yeah.
fairies that keep feeding me stuff. Um
Yeah, I really think you're going nuts. There's there's something to what you're saying too about how like the little thing with the to-do list and stuff that prints out in the morning. I actually do really like that. I think it's really fun. Like making, to do things like feel more tangible and like it kind of engages me in the morning and gets me thinking the right way. Like I actually do really like it. But the problem is that it's kind of like the opposite of anxiety. Like, you know how you can be anxious about something. You can be anxious about getting sick or having cancer or something. And it can like consume you and you think about it all the time and you can't turn that off. And it's not crazy. Like you can get sick. People do get cancer. So it is a real thing to be worried about. It's just that you're like giving it more weight than you should and it's becoming detrimental. Like just the thought itself is making you sick in a sense. It feels a little bit like the opposite where I could chase down every random idea that crosses my brain. Some of them might be good. Some of them might actually turn out to matter. The article that we wrote, like with the YouTube thing that you did, was like kind of a whim also. Not quite the same because we agreed to like put it out there publicly, but still it easily could have just not happened and we decided to do it. So like there is truth to it that
Right.
some of those little
Yeah.
ideas do matter.
That's a
I,
perfect example. So I'll shut up, but, like, seriously, those 2 things that we did changed our lives.
right.
I'll shut up.
Well, changed your life. Mine is not materially different,
It
although
changed your life.
well,
Change your
it was
just
a big
say
deal
it
for sure.
changed.
Okay, 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 fine, fine. But the fact that there's truth there doesn't mean that every single random thing that you do or every idea that crosses your head is worth doing. In the same way that like being the fact that people really do get cancer doesn't mean you should spend every moment thinking about it. Like there does have to be balance. You can just kind of flit from one thing to another and step into every fairy ring that you see. And like the cost of that is that there are, it's not like if you did that rather than watch The Office for the 47th time, I don't really see a downside. But if you're stepping into the fairy ring instead of working on the thing that you had set out to do, that you like very calmly and calculatedly said, this is a thing that makes sense. I think this is worth doing. But instead of doing that, you're stepping into the fairy ring. Like that to me is sort of along the lines of like the opposite of anxiety type of thing. Like you're putting too much value on this
Yeah.
at the cost of something else that's important.
I totally agree with you. I know that I'm making mistakes right now and I'm falling victim to this, but at the same time, it's like your work is better if you're excited about it. So
That
shouldn't you
is,
be chasing the excitement, right? Rather than
yeah.
feeling enslaved to this old promise you made? It's like I know the
Well,
problems of it.
I
Yeah.
mean, look, there on the one hand, you could say, yeah, go nuts, do whatever seems exciting. Like whatever's exciting in the moment, just do that. You know, what's the downside of doing that?
Outside is everything I'm running into right now. So I'm
Okay. So
yeah,
then there
like
you go.
this is not an argument or I'm presenting the argument from my intuitive side of my brain where I'm
Right.
saying, "Why can't I just follow the shiny things?" And, you're doing a good job of arguing that.
I think the very difficult thing about this is that it is simply not a like clear, you must do this, this is the better thing. It is one of those things that just requires a careful, delicate balance between opposing things that are like you're always wrestling with. It's just hard. And there's not really any way around that. I think that that is often what you see when you get down into the harder problems. Like the projects that I'm working on, this like software stuff. Doing the simple bits are simple. AI mostly can do them now. But it's like the parts where you fundamentally have to make trade-offs. Those are where it takes some like really careful thinking. And there just isn't a way to decide like, yes, this is better or no, this is better. You just have to kind of weigh options and like, you know, pick the narrow path down the middle or wherever that lies. Like that's just what this is yeah, there's a value in the novelty. There's also a value in staying the course and sticking to the plan. You're going to have to kind of navigate that.
So, the metaphor I came up with, not as cool as the fairy ring stuff, but
Yeah.
it's like there is no bullseye. It's empty there. And
Yeah.
and you're always aiming for it, but it doesn't exist. There's no bullseye. It's just
Yeah.
a black hole. And, yeah, you can never get the balance perfect. You can never it just doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
to back up your little printer story thing where you wasted
Mhm.
time on, I spent this was yesterday or 2 days ago, I spent about 6 hours making a video on my morning routine that I will never show anyone.
Okay.
I did it to document it for me, but by the end of it, I'm thinking, "I am spending my entire weekend day making a video on my morning routine, and I don't even like it. I don't wanna watch it." But, maybe it'll mean something in the future. I'm just saying I followed that. It was a spur of the
Yeah.
moment idea. Let me dedicate the next 6 hours to this little feeling.
Well, okay. To even like argue against myself a little bit here, clearly, like if 100% of the time that you were putting in to your goal, the YouTube stuff and whatever, was being translated perfectly into result, meaning you put an hour in of working on art, working on story, working on YouTube video, and that like very concretely makes a thing better that is public. Like your video gets 1,000 more views when you release it, or it's just the quality goes up every time. Then I would say that's a huge mistake. You could have put those 6 hours into your next YouTube video and it would have been better. But that doesn't really feel like what is happening. It's not that you're limited on time and therefore the quality suffers. It's that there's like, in some sense, a lack of clarity or ability to execute exactly what needs to be done to go into the final product, right? Like there is a lot of spinning wheels and exploring something that doesn't really wind up mattering. Like It's the time. The bigger problem is like the decision making and the clear-headedness and being able to focus on the right things at the right time without having to redo things and all of that. So if just doing an experiment that's like fully self-contained of, okay, I'm just going to record myself and, do whatever for 6 hours, like, okay, I don't like that, I'm going to throw it away. If that just helps you like kind of evolve your thinking, or even maybe just get your mind off of the other stuff, like it might actually be worthwhile. For me, I did waste time on this printer thing, but it also was fun and it did kind of reset my brain a little bit from the other stuff that I was working on. And if I reflect back on how many days I would wind up just spending like the last hour or two of the day stuck on some problem that I solved immediately the next morning, I like that time was useless and I could have just not spent it and relaxed and I would not have been any worse off. So I just think there's something there too on like respecting your own health and mental clarity. You should exercise, you should eat, you should sleep, all of those things. You'll probably almost certainly be better off in the long run. So
Yeah. Okay. Final thought. Where I've come to with this idea of in my own world, you have the other world. You have the fairy world basically.
mhm.
And you can go into it and it can be wonderful, it can be horrible, it can be, black or white, it can be either thing.
Yeah.
And you can get totally lost, you can lose 100 years, your whole life, whatever. Or it can be the most wonderful thing ever. It can be anything. It's the other world, it's the fairy world. I think the answer or what we don't want to end up in the mental hospital or whatever. We
Right.
want to be able to go freely from the creative fairy world. I love this. The creative
Yep.
fairy world back to the real world.
Yeah.
So you you need to my conclusion is that you need to always be tethered. Keep a tether to the real world. Keep, one foot or a rope tied back into realism so you can travel freely between the two worlds.
Yeah.
But I mean, even still, it's like it's hard to pull back sometimes. But if you lose that tether, you're at risk of being lost forever.
Yep.
So you need to be able to. I'm telling myself I need to be able to keep one foot in reality
Yeah.
and keep exercising and eating right, even though sometimes it's not as exciting as
Mhm.
you know the other world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I like that as a final thought. I really have to pee, and I have had to pee for half an hour. So let's end it there. Um, Good job recentering yourself, um, and good job Marty Wiggins for doing something last week. Anybody else has any cool projects? Let us know. We will talk to you again next week.